One of the things we've tried to do is focus on what we can control. And what we can control is continue to try to develop the best products.
Never start your tractors like this again. Diesel's days are numbered. What if the engine you trust today could become the thing that breaks farming tomorrow? Picture this: green and yellow machines humming silently across the fields, leaving nothing but clean water vapor in their wake. Sounds like sci-fi? It's not. Today, you'll discover why John Deere's bold move could upend 2 centuries of farming, and how this shift might save your wallet, the planet, and your family legacy all at once. For generations, diesel engines have been the lifeblood of agriculture. From the moment you turn the key, that guttural roar tells you the work has begun. But diesel's grown unpredictable. Prices spike without warning, regulations tighten, and aging power lines threaten to leave you stranded at the worst possible moment. If you've ever stared at a fuel bill that wipes out your profit or worried about new emissions rules, you know that diesel farming is living on borrowed time. The problem? Farming depends on constant power, and diesel is the only source we've trusted. But oil markets are volatile. Any unrest overseas sends pump prices soaring. Suddenly, a season's success or failure can hinge on factors you can't control. Meanwhile, governments around the world are cracking down on greenhouse gases and particulate pollution. Diesel spews nitrogen oxides and soot that damage air quality and human health. And regulators are slapping fines on anyone who fumes above the new thresholds. Even in rural areas, where green initiatives once moved at a glacier's pace, the heat is on. Emissions targets are closing in, grid upgrades lag behind demand, and your backup generator may not save you if the power goes out for days. John Deere, the unrivaled Goliath of farm equipment, is in the epicenter of this impending chaos. John Deere now supplies farmers on 6 continents, having grown from a small blacksmith shop it started in 1837. The reliability, durability, and mechanical strength symbolized by the brand's green and yellow equipment have spread throughout the globe, from the tiniest family farms in Iowa to massive industrial-scale operations in Brazil. Diesel engines provide physical force and unfaltering endurance, making their tractors, combines, planters, and harvesters the envy of the industry. However, there is a significant reliance that comes with such supremacy. Diesel is the lifeblood of modern farming. The yearly diesel fuel use of American farms exceeds 1.2 billion gallons, according to USDA figures. When the global agriculture economy is taken into account, this figure only increases. Irrigation pumps, grain trucks, tillers, and sprayers are all powered by diesel. The plowing of fields, planting of crops, and harvesting of food would all be impossible without diesel. Modern farming would come to a standstill. Diesel engines provided farmers with the dependability required to operate expansive fields consistently, free from mechanical breakdowns. Their tremendous torque was essential for shifting tons of dirt, pulling huge machinery, and transporting harvests weighing thousands of pounds. Diesel appeared unrivaled for quite some time due to its robustness, abundance, and affordability. However, this bulletproof armor is starting to reveal fractures, and those cracks are becoming wider by the day. Diesel fuel prices, for starters, have been anything but steady. Fuel costs for farmers have increased dramatically over the past 20 years as a result of political unpredictability, interruptions in the supply chain, and volatility in the global oil market. A jump in fuel costs may have a devastating effect on profits. In certain cases, it can even determine the fate of a whole season. As it is, farming is an extremely risky and profit-poor enterprise. Fuel price volatility adds insult to injury, making it hard for many farmers to choose between competing fields or decide which machinery to retire early. Second, rules pertaining to the environment are becoming near. governments are cracking down on emissions from all industries, including agricultural, all across the globe. Aside from carbon dioxide, which is a significant greenhouse gas, diesel engines release particles and nitrogen oxides, which amplify pollution and exacerbate respiratory ailments. The farm-to-fork strategy in the EU and the California goal of carbon neutrality are two examples of new regulations that are establishing lofty goals and will need drastic reductions in emissions, with severe consequences for non-compliance. U.S. federal and state governments are dropping hints that unregulated diesel farming is about to end, even though rural Americans are notoriously resistant to environmental regulations. The grid problem also exists. People living in cities seldom hear about the power outages that rural areas of the United States are already experiencing. The power wires in our cities are getting on in years. More and more outages are happening. The construction of renewable energy infrastructure is lagging well behind the escalating demand. We must find a solution to this pressing problem if farming is to wean itself off of diesel. However, it is not feasible to simply connect tractors to an overloaded electrical grid. Simple math tells us that if we can't find a suitable substitute, farming will grind to a halt, food costs would soar, and rural economies will crumble. There is a monumental turning point coming up as a result of all these issues, and it has the potential to save agriculture from its impending energy crisis or throw it into even more uncertainty. The CEO of John Deere does not exaggerate when he claims that his company has created a revolutionary engine that might revolutionize farming as we know it. A word of caution: the bow is fired. Why? Because it's unprecedented for a diesel-based firm to be planning to dismantle its empire and replace it with something entirely new. Now, tell me more about this new engine. With millions of devices spread out over billions of acres, how can it bring down such a complex system? The most critical question is whether this is the new normal in farming or if it is only a fad. What happens next might alter the course of history, so be sure to tune in. An unseen uprising was simmering under the diesel dynasty's signature green and yellow paint and the recognizable rumble of their engines, and it had the potential to depose them. John Deere's CEO recently made public the fact that the firm is testing out a revolutionary new engine technology that has the potential to shake up the agricultural sector. Today, not in the future. This isn't some far-off concept. Presently, it is taking place. This engine isn't only an improvement over diesel engines, it's a long-term replacement for them. In what ways is John Deere's latest project threatening to disrupt a way of life that has persisted for over 200 years? And why are oil firms and farmers alike trying to predict the future with such aplomb? Two groundbreaking technologies are central to the announcement. As a first step, John Deere is developing H2ICEs, or internal combustion engines that run on hydrogen. Although they use hydrogen gas instead of diesel, these engines still resemble and sound like conventional internal combustion engines. The second, more revolutionary, is the concept of complete fuel cell electric tractors. These tractors generate power using hydrogen fuel cells, which enable them to run silently, cleanly, and without emitting any direct pollutants. The combination of these technologies is like a double-edged dagger, slashing down diesel farming's neck. You have to know how all the systems function to grasp just how massive this is. There is a lot of mechanical similarity between diesel engines and hydrogen internal combustion engines. Their power source is compressed hydrogen, which is combined with air and burned to produce electricity. No carbon dioxide, soot, or particles are produced as a result of this combustion. The sole waste is a trace quantity of water vapor. Without the drawbacks of carbon emissions, these engines provide farmers with the basic hardware, pistons, crankshafts, gears that they need. No complicated new training is required. The usage of tractors in the field has not undergone any significant alterations. Simpler, lighter, and maybe more powerful machinery. Instead, fuel cell electric tractors represent a radical departure from traditional agricultural gear. These tractors generate power using an electrochemical method using hydrogen fuel cells rather than conventional engines. Electric motors, powered by electricity, provide the tractor with instantaneous, smooth torque. Once more, the sole byproduct is water vapor, avoidance of greenhouse gas emissions, clean air. We don't need bulky batteries that take forever to charge. And most crucially, you won't have to worry about relying on the shaky rural power supply. The end objective of both methods is the same: to wean the agricultural sector off diesel altogether. Supplying farmers with a green choice is only part of the story. The CEO of John Deere claims that the goal is to completely dismantle the previous system. This engine isn't about evolving farming, he told a room full of shocked reporters and experts in the field. Stopping the old approach completely is the point, not making adjustments, changing directions suddenly. The conclusion. The surprising part was more than simply the words. Prototypes showcased by Deere are now undergoing field testing in several North American locales. Neither were they promotional teasers nor computer renderings. Actual machinery running actual crops, actually laboring. John Deere is not treating hydrogen as an afterthought. The scope of their goal was plain to see. Around it, they intend to reconstruct farmland in the future. The first responses were really strong. On the verge of losing one of their final great bastions in the agriculture sector, oil and diesel supplier stocks fell within hours of the news. The diesel parts industry, which pumps out billions of dollars worth of injectors, turbochargers, and engine components to the agricultural sector, started rushing to reassure shareholders by saying they were diversifying their product lines. In the meanwhile, rural independent mechanics, many of whom have made a living fixing diesel tractors, were understandably worried about the future of their jobs. This is a very real concern. There are a lot fewer moving parts in hydrogen engines compared to diesel ones. Even more so, fuel cells. There will be less wear and tear, fewer failures, and fewer mechanical repair calls as a result. John Deere's plan would drastically reduce the complex supply networks that have provided diesel farming with fuel, including oil companies, refineries, distributors of components, and repair shops. Environmentalists and public servants, on the other hand, were virtually ecstatic. Those working to achieve carbon neutrality on a national and worldwide scale celebrated the decision as a possible game changer. Greenhouse gas emissions from diesel-powered machinery are mostly responsible for the 10% of these emissions that come from the agricultural sector in the U.S. Major environmental benefits might be achieved very immediately by switching to hydrogen power for even a small portion of that fleet. However, at this moment, why? What gives John Deere the confidence to make such a drastic change after nearly 200 years of diesel supremacy? Just being alive is a part of the solution. Pressure from regulators is increasing rapidly. The UK, France, and Germany are among the nations that have put forth dates for when sales of all new internal combustion engines, including those used in farm machinery, will be completely banned. In the US, places like California are establishing stringent zero-emission goals that will quickly cover industries other than automobiles, such as agriculture and construction. John Deere appears to be taking note of the signs. Additionally, there is a financial motive. There needs to be stability for the farmers. Global supply shocks frequently affect diesel prices, making them unpredictable. Green hydrogen, produced from renewable energy sources, is one kind of hydrogen that might help farms achieve energy independence. Picture this: a farmer who puts a solar-powered electrolyzer on their property can produce their own hydrogen from water, and their tractors would never need diesel again. Save money on gas. There will be no unexpected fees, without supply chain catastrophes. Obviously, there are still enormous challenges. Rural areas of the United States still have little access to hydrogen. It will need a lot of money to build the infrastructure that can recharge tractors reliably and fast. The cost of producing hydrogen in an environmentally friendly manner, sometimes referred to as green hydrogen by specialists, is still higher than that of traditional fuels. The new machines must be able to withstand the harsh conditions of farming, which include dirt, dust, heavy loads, hot summers, and cold winters, and farmers must have faith that they can. Despite these challenges, John Deere is confident in its ability to succeed. Rumor has it that the business is hard at work on more than only the cars themselves. They're also developing integrated solutions, such as portable hydrogen generating and storage devices. Picture a farm where some of the land is devoted to renewable energy sources, like wind and solar panels. These power an electrolyzer, which in turn separates water into its oxygen and hydrogen components. Tractors, harvesters, and other machinery may be refueled using the hydrogen that is stored on site. Energy autonomy. Deliveries of fuel are no longer delayed. Fuel price shocks are no longer a threat. And tractors are only the beginning. Everything from transportation trucks to irrigation pumps and grain dryers, even entire farms may be kept working during grid disruptions thanks to Deere's hydrogen-powered technologies. Engines are only one aspect of this. A cleaner, more sustainable, and more lucrative energy environment centered on farming is what this is all about. The diesel dynasty has powered farming for years, but John Deere's revolutionary new engine technology poses a direct challenge to them. What most people don't see is a complete ecology based on diesel, hidden behind the rows of neatly parked tractors and harvesters beneath the wheat and maize fields. Despite being undetectable, it permeates all areas. Everything from fuel trucks and repair shops to distributors of parts and finance plans, even the guarantees written on new machines rely on diesel. More than 100 years have passed, with this unseen mechanism still in operation. Farm operations, farmer decision-making, and the sustainability of rural economies have all been impacted. All of this may come crashing down in an instant if hydrogen technology manages to eliminate the need for diesel in farming. The impact will be felt most acutely by oil businesses. A large and steady portion of their rural business is currently diesel sales to farmers. In addition to providing fuel to highway service stations, they also provide fuel tanks on farms with thousands of gallons of petroleum, frequently under long-term contracts. For a medium-sized farm, just one harvest season might use up thousands of dollars worth of fuel. Those delivery vehicles, meanwhile, will be in short supply if hydrogen replaces gasoline as the preferred fuel. Demand that has been consistent enough to keep rural fuel providers afloat in the face of falling sales of gasoline for passenger cars may soon disappear. When those small businesses in rural areas close their doors for good, it will be a double whammy. They'll damage themselves, and the rest of the economy will feel the pinch. The next stop will be the many repair businesses that dot the countryside, particularly the mom-and-pop operations. Complex machinery, diesel engines are. Their cooling systems, fuel pumps, injectors, turbochargers, and emissions filters are just a few of the many systems that need regular maintenance. Diesel engines eventually break down from constant usage on farms. Thus, mechanics may earn a livelihood fixing these systems. Hydrogen systems, whether they rely on internal combustion engines or fuel cells, are totally unique. Fewer components are involved. The internal temperatures at which they work are lower. They are unaffected by soot buildup or gum up caused by poor quality gasoline. Hydrogen engines, in a nutshell, produce less noise. They require minimal maintenance. Thousands of mechanics rely on diesel equipment maintenance for their livelihoods, and this will lead to a decline in their employment opportunities. Worryingly, This fact begs the question, what becomes of rural economies that rely on repairing diesel farming equipment? After 3 generations of family members have worked at the same small-town repair shop, what becomes of it? Would such mechanics be able to switch gears and operate older engines with hydrogen systems that mimic spaceship behavior? If they are unable to do so, how many communities will see the closure of another once essential small business? When you consider the structure of agricultural finance, the danger becomes much more pronounced. Financial institutions have spent many years honing their lending programs to cater to diesel-powered machines. Diesel tractors have a known lifetime. They are familiar with the resale prices, normal depreciation rates, and anticipated maintenance expenses. Whether it's for determining loan risk or warranty terms, all of their financial models assume a diesel-powered world. All those calculations crumble when hydrogen is introduced. In what ways does a hydrogen tractor's lifespan vary? In the event that something breaks, how much will it cost to fix it? After 5 years, will you be able to sell one on the secondary market? Lenders can be hesitant to provide funding for new hydrogen-powered equipment unless they have solid answers to these concerns. This might lead to more stringent lending terms, higher interest rates, or even complete rejection for farmers seeking to replace their machines. Any measure that makes it more difficult to secure finance might further threaten the financial stability of already fragile farms, perhaps leading to their forced consolidation or collapse. This disturbance also has an intangible emotional and cultural component. A farm is more than a place to make a profit. This is how many people live their lives. Tractors are more than simply devices. In the fight against the elements, soil, and the passage of time, they are allies. Every farmer has an ear for the sound of a well-maintained diesel engine. If they detect a wobble in the steering wheel, or detect an odor of exhaust, they can diagnose the problem. These ties have developed over many years of experience and are so strong that they seem instinctual. That familiarity might be erased by hydrogen. You won't hear a roar from a hydrogen tractor when it starts up. As it sits idle, it won't make a sound that can be heard underfoot. It will be distinct, yet silent and unsettling in its clinical efficiency. Will farmers welcome this shift, or will it make them feel uncomfortable, like the equipment they've relied on for years are now unfamiliar? Another troubling topic is whether the next generation of farmers who were raised with diesel but are now taking over the family farm would see hydrogen machinery as a step forward or as an unwanted threat. Is this new technology going to bring rural communities together, or will it further exacerbate the generational and cultural differences that are currently affecting farming? The farm isn't the only place where supply networks might be at risk. There will be less need for rural logistics firms that ship diesel, engine components, or emissions equipment. Devastating losses may hit whole industrial sectors, including those that produce components for diesel engines. Very few people would have anticipated the far-reaching consequences that would affect not only farms, but also warehouses, transportation hubs, and factories. Diesel is more than simply a fuel, and that is the root cause of all this danger. An entire way of life is built around it. No matter how innovative, efficient, or environmentally friendly hydrogen is, it will always threaten that base. That is why the decision made by John Deere is so surprising. It goes beyond engines alone. A long-established cultural and economic order is being dismantled. The reasoning for the change, however, seems compelling. Pollution from diesel engines is substantial. Aside from being politically unpredictable, diesel fuel is costly. Costs associated with maintaining diesel fleets that are getting on in years continue to rise. More and more, governments are making it clear that they want to push diesel regulation to the periphery of the economy. Holding on to diesel might not be a sign of strength in such situation. It could be a risky bet with dwindling chances. it would still be a dirty and difficult collapse of diesel farming infrastructure. That would be a disaster. This is going to hurt. Some companies would change, reskill, and stay in business. Not everyone would. Neither the lab technicians nor the C-suite executives would be the ones to suffer through this chaos. It would be the farmers attempting to provide for their families, the mechanics attempting to maintain business as usual, and the truck drivers attempting to complete their deliveries. John Deere is at the forefront of a new hydrogen-powered future in agriculture, which is rapidly replacing the old diesel-based world. These futuristic-sounding technologies are at the heart of John Deere's daring mission to reimagine farming, and they're actually being developed using actual machinery on actual fields right now. Putting a battery pack on an old tractor or modifying a diesel engine are not the points here. This is all about rethinking the power source for farm machinery. A shift is imminent to the basic substance that sustains agriculture: fuel, for the first time in more than 100 years. Everything else is a natural byproduct of that transformation. The HK-ICE, or hydrogen internal combustion engine, is the cornerstone of this revolution. Pistons, crankshafts, and valves, many of the parts that farmers are acquainted with and trust, are still present, giving it a comforting appearance at first sight. Everything that goes into the engine and everything that comes out is different. An H2-ICE uses pure hydrogen instead of diesel fuel, which produces no emissions other than smoke and carbon dioxide. Hydrogen does not produce polluting byproducts when burned. It produces steam, mechanical power, and water vapor, a very harmless byproduct that you may stand near the exhaust pipe without being affected. This provides an essential benefit. No mechanical expertise is required of farmers who have spent their careers fixing diesel engines. Troubleshooting mechanical tolerances, identifying engine sounds, and fixing moving parts are all relevant abilities. Underneath, a lot is still familiar, which makes the change less scary. The advantages, however, are substantial. The farm will not be subjected to carbon emissions, clogged filters, or the blackening of air surrounding it by diesel particles. Although combustion is not John Deere's final goal. Additionally, fuel cell electric tractors are being developed by them. These devices are very different in operation. Fuel cells produce energy by reacting hydrogen and oxygen chemically, rather than by burning anything. The electric motors that propel the tractor ahead are powered by the electricity that is generated. Since there is no burning, there will be no sound, no blasts, and no tremors. Envision a tractor that glides as silently as an electric luxury vehicle, carrying heavy equipment over fields, while the sole sound emanating from its tires is the crunch of dirt. The fact that these tractors may be recharged independently of the power grid is one of the most innovative features of this design. They instead bring their hydrogen on board, which is securely held in tanks that are under high pressure. So long as hydrogen is accessible, they can refuel in a matter of minutes and resume their job without delay. No need to wait for a battery to charge. I won't have to worry about relying on the already stressed rural electricity system. Being able to refill and redeploy swiftly might be the deciding factor between a successful harvest and a disastrous failure during peak planting and harvesting hours. The level of futuristicness increases at this point. John Deere isn't taking the delivery of hydrogen to farms via tanker trucks for granted. Their ideal farm would have its own hydrogen production facility. Electrolysis is a method that uses electricity to separate water molecules into hydrogen and oxygen. Hydrogen created without the use of fossil fuels would be the most environmentally friendly option if the power for the process came from renewable sources like solar panels or wind turbines, which are already being used by many farms. Let your mind go to a farm where a little section of land is adorned with solar panels and wind turbines. A constant supply of hydrogen is produced by these systems by feeding electricity into an electrolyzer. The farm's machinery may be refueled whenever necessary from the hydrogen that is kept in safe tanks. Less reliance on the unpredictable oil market. Fuel shortages are a thing of the past. The farm transforms into an ecosystem that can maintain itself, producing its own energy in a clean and reliable way rather than merely consuming it. However, there are obstacles to overcome with hydrogen, despite its potential. Large, high-pressure tanks are necessary to store enough hydrogen for heavy-duty labor due to its extremely low energy density by volume. This is why forward-thinking companies like John Deere are investigating ammonia as a potential fuel substitute. The two byproducts of hydrogen and nitrogen, ammonia, are more convenient to store and transport than hydrogen alone. Smaller tanks can store more useful energy due to its significantly greater energy density. Specialized internal combustion engines may burn ammonia directly, or it can be broken back into hydrogen on the spot to feed fuel cells. Because of its widespread usage as a fertilizer, ammonia is also a fuel that farmers are relatively familiar with. Tractors that run on ammonia have immensely promising futures. In addition to streamlining transportation logistics, ammonia has the potential to pave the way for environmentally friendly farming on a grand scale, all without the costly and time-consuming construction of new fueling stations. The agriculture sector may also make use of its extensive expertise in the safe handling and storage of ammonia. These hydrogen-powered tractors also have the additional benefit of being able to function as portable power stations, which might be extremely useful in times of natural catastrophes or rural blackouts. Electric tractors that can be hooked up to a house or farm's power grid and used as a backup power source are becoming increasingly common due to the widespread usage of fuel cells. Envision a rural county without electricity because of a storm. A farmer might power essential equipment, appliances, and lights with a hydrogen tractor parked in the driveway, eliminating the need for a diesel generator and the grid. In doing so, the tractor gets upgraded from a seasonal implement to a useful tool all year round. For farms that are becoming more susceptible to grid outages and severe weather, it becomes more than simply a harvesting and tilling equipment. It becomes a portable energy solution. However, it is hard to pinpoint any one technological component of John Deere's strategy as being the most innovative. Their outlook on farming's long-term viability is the key. Farms of the future will be able to generate all of their own electricity, control their own emissions, and run with more adaptability and resilience than diesel-based systems because of the integration of hydrogen fuel cells, on-farm energy production, mobile power generation, and new fuel types like ammonia. Can you picture a future when the cost of crude oil has no bearing on a farmer's bottom line? A world where fuel is always available, and farmers never again face the stress of worrying about whether their crops will be ready to harvest or when their orders will be delayed. In which rural areas produce their own renewable energy from locally available sources, sunlight, wind, and water. That planet is not even a few decades distant. Research facilities, test fields, and pilot projects are all actively working on it at a rate that most people don't even understand. The hydrogen revolution at John Deere will have unclean byproducts. You won't survive it. Whole sectors that have depended on diesel for decades will suddenly be in a precarious position, fighting for existence. Once vital to rural economies, oil distributors will witness a gradual decline in business. There will be no more annual diesel contracts securing thousands of liters for farms. There will be no more last-minute deliveries during harvest. Their storage facilities, rural sales offices, and tanker truck fleets are all in danger of becoming antiquated in a matter of days. Case IH, New Holland, Kubota, and the rest of John Deere's rivals will be left with no alternative but to respond. While Deere changes the face of farming forever, no one can afford to do nothing. A whirlwind of alliances, announcements, and hastily assembled hydrogen prototypes is likely. There will be imitation software. True invention will be among them. Some will be futile efforts to maintain some semblance of relevance. The race has begun anyway. Much obliged for your time. Please subscribe, like, and comment if you found this entertaining. To see more riveting videos, click on the next one.